So since we sent the stuff to grading, what I'm gonna do now is kind of do a little bit of management on the timeline, and I wanted to show you a couple of tips and tricks when you're renaming your shots and adding some tagging in the timeline and to the clips to make life a lot easier when we go to exporting and distributing this later. Together with how to keep up your sequences a little bit tighter. So the first thing I'm gonna do is rename my shots. So you probably all know that you can rename shots in Studio quite easily. So you can just select the shots you want to rename, and if you look, I'm not selecting all the tracks, I'm just selecting the bottom track. I'm trying to select where the base of all my edits are, and that's what I'm gonna use for the namings. And I'll show you how I'm gonna name the top ones later. So I'm gonna right click and do editorial, rename shots, and in this case it's just the name of the show with some padding, starting at 10 and including 10, and increments of 10. This depends on your pipeline. I normally leave some space between each shot just in case I need to rename those shots later. So, or sorry, if I need to insert a shot in the middle or something later. So I'm gonna rename this, and that will rename my shots correctly. Again, the important bit is the name of the actual file hasn't been changed. This all metadata, and so when I reconfirm this with my graded footage, then it's gonna be quite easily done. So now one of the main things is we're gonna export the stop track for the animators just as reference. This is not gonna go into the compers, but these shots here will go to the compers. And I need to make sure that when I create the comps or do the export, those plates go into the same shot. And I don't want to rename those shots manually. In this case, it's only 2 shots, but on any other show, it could be, I don't know, quite a few shots on top that you actually need. So to do that and make sure that you get the correct naming conventions of all the main shots, is you can do something called copy cuts. So the nice thing of copy cuts, if you just select any track or anything and go editorial, copy cuts, and copy cuts allows you to do 2 things. One, copy the cuts from a given track. In this case, I'm gonna use the plates 1 into all the other plates. Obviously, these ones already have the cuts, but it won't copy those cuts. But if I wanted, I could do it to a reference, for example, or I could do it to the audio, so I could export the audio for the animators on the different shots. And I'm gonna actually do that, but also I want to export, not only make the copy of the cuts, but I also want to rename the shots with the same shot name. So that's how we're gonna copy the names and make sure that everything has the same naming conventions. You can decide to not do it, but it's quite a nice, easy way of renaming shots very quickly. So when I do that, you can see that will make all the cuts, and now all my tracks have the same and the correct naming conventions in there, which will make my life a lot easier when I send these to other people. Now, I'm gonna start doing something called tagging, and this is a little bit laborious at the beginning, but it's gonna pay quite a lot later on. So the idea is that I'll be using tags here. These ones are our tags. It's a way of adding metadata to shots, to clips, to the timeline, even to tracks if you want. So if you actually look, we have added a tag here to this track that is the reference tag. So I can use it for exporting or ignoring it at exporting times or things like that. So if you think of this, what I can do is, for example, say that these shots are gonna go to animation. So in my case, I have some tags here for the different softwares that you could use. So for example, I could use a Moto one to say that goes to the animation department. I also know that most shots will need some camera tracking of some sort. Maybe there is 1 or 2 shots that don't need camera tracking, like that one doesn't need camera tracking. And maybe, I think there is one more, this one I think at the end, and I think that's about it. So if we actually go and say we select everything else, so I can go, sorry, not that one, and we select all the other ones in the meantime, and I'm just gonna go and say, you know, all these shots need camera tracking. So again, you have different type of stuff here. You have what type of shots is it? Is it the background, foreground, midground, blue screen, green screen? You can create your own stuff. For example, I can create a new tag. You can create new bins. I can create a new tag and call it, let's call this one roto, because some shots will need roto. And I'm gonna go and use one of the icons, or you can use your own icon. I'm actually gonna use the Keylight one, which I like, if I find it. There you are, Keylight. And go okay. So I'm gonna use the Keylight for rotoscoping. So I could say that, I don't know, certain shots will need rotoscoping for different parts. I don't know, let's say, obviously something like here, that guy will need to be rotoscope on top. So let's say that all that sequence needs to be rotoscoped completely. So we can start tagging that and having them giving metadata to those shots. And I'll explain you why this is going to be quite useful in a bit. Now, the other thing that we can tag is actually tagging frames. In this case, it's not going to be, this is not a big show, so it's not a major thing. But if you think that I'll be working on a big project with a lot of sequences, say a feature film or something like that, you can actually tag frames. And the nice thing about it is, so let's actually use my markers in this case. I'm going to put my green marker and I can drag and drop it onto the viewer. And again, I can do tag the whole sequence, tag this frame, the track item, or tag a clip. So in this case, I'm actually going to tag the frame, and you're going to see that it pops up in different places. It pops up here, and it also pops up in the timeline, so you can see it there and there. Now, let's add another one somewhere. Let's say once the guy starts dancing, is a different sequence for any given reason. Let's tag that frame. And let's say that the end of the sequence is something else. So I'm going to add another one at that point. So tag that frame. Cool. Now, you can rename those tags at any given point and say what they are. You can add notes specific to that point. But the main thing is in the timeline. If you use Alt Shift and the arrows, you can jump between the actual keys, tags. So it's an easier way to move around your timeline using markers.